Rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to today's book and author series. My name is Muhammad Masroua. I'm a second semester student PhD program, and I'm your EMC for this afternoon. On behalf of the organization committee, I would like to welcome everyone to the 7th book and author series. Thank you for joining us today in today's session. Simple reminder, please, everyone can please mute their microphones because we have some background noise right now. Can you? Brother Hanif, can you mute some? Okay, perfect. Okay, if you have questions to ask, please type in the chat box. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation, and I will read out your questions to our speakers. So, ladies and gentlemen, as an introduction, INCEIF Knowledge Management Center, the KMC, is in collaboration with the Alumni Office of Organize this book and series. This is the 7th. This event has been organized and the 7th time that this event has been organized, and this time we are conducting it virtually. The last series was conducted in February, where INCEIF alumni Dr. Zahir Anwar, who is now an associate professor at the Sunway University, Malaysia, shared about his book, Portfolio Decision for Faith-Based Investors, the case of Sharia-compliant and ethical equities. Without any delay, we are privileged to have with us today Dr. Fatima Muhammad Abdulkarim, another INCEIF alumni, to share about the book that she wrote with Professor Dr. Abbas Mirakhor and Professor Dr. Baharom Abdul Hamid, entitled Financialization of the Economy and Income Inequality in Selected OIC and OECD Countries. Before I invite the speaker, allow me to introduce Dr. Fatima, and please correct me, Dr. Fatima, if I make any mistake.
Okay.
Dr. Fatima Muhammad Abdulkarim is currently teaching at the Department of Banking and Finance at the Federal University, Dutsi, Nigeria. In 2018, she was appointed as head of Actuarial Science Department for 2 years, in which her tenure expired in 2020. She received her bachelor degree in business administration e-commerce from Infrastructure University, Kuala Lumpur, here in Malaysia, and graduated with a first-class honors in 2011. She obtained her PhD in Islamic finance from INCEIF in 2016, and also a master's in business administration, majoring in Islamic finance from University Kebangsaan, Malaysia, UKM, in 2012. She is an active research focusing on Islamic equity, portfolio diversification, financialization, and sukuk. She has presented numerous research papers in high-impact journals such as the Isra International Journal of Islamic Finance and African Journal of Economics and Management Studies. So without further delay, I now invite our speaker, Dr. Fatima, to share about her book, Financialization of the Economy and Income Inequality in Selected OIC and OECD Countries. Dr. Fatima, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, brother, for the introduction. Let me first of all share my screen. I'm coming, please. Share my screen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Brother Muhammad, for the introduction. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning from the ancient city of Kano. And Salamat Tangahari, or good afternoon for those of you living in Malaysia and other parts of the world. First of all, I would like to thank INCEIF Knowledge Management Center for granting me the opportunity to present about my book. And also, I would like to thank the publishers who found my book worthy of publication, So I thank you very much. The title of this book is Financialization of the Economy and Income Inequality in Selected OIC and OECD Country. And this book was edited by a renowned professor, Professor Abbas Mirakhor, who is a very renowned scholar of Islamic finance and economics. So, and I am so opportune, and I thank Allah for granting me the opportunity to be supervised by him. So I think the little introduction or the little you heard about me is enough, but let me add a little bit for those of you who are meeting me for the first time. I have lived in Malaysia for 16 years, 16 good years, and Bahasa Malay is like my third language, you know, because my kids presently, they communicate basically in Malay. And sometimes when we go out and we want to talk that we don't want people to hear what we are saying, we will speak in Malay. So Alhamdulillah, I thank Allah for this opportunity. What motivated me to write about this book, you know, is the fact that, or I would say it's from my personal experience as a Nigerian, you know, because Nigeria is a country where there are extremes in richness and also poverty, which is caused by income inequality.
Sorry, Dr. Fatima, we can't see your slides.
You can see?
Yeah.
But I'm already sharing it.
Let me. You share again?
Yes. Wait.
Okay, now we can see it.
So I shouldn't put it in a slideshow. It should be like this.
Can you try slideshow?
Okay, how about now?
Okay, now it's clear. Thank you.
It's clear?
Yep.
So I should continue, right? From where I stopped.
Yeah, you can continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so what motivated me to write about this topic is from my personal experience being a Nigerian, because Nigeria is a country that is like that has extremes in richness and also poverty. And this is mainly caused by income inequality. Everybody knows that Nigeria is a resource-rich country. It's a very rich country, but sadly, the vast majority of the population live in, basically, I would say, abject poverty. So that motivated me to think about what causes this extreme inequality. That is from my personal experience, you know. And this problem is not only peculiar to Nigeria, but also to other emerging economies, or I would say it's just a global problem, you know. So I embarked on this quest to fact findings, you know, mission to get what the cause is all about. So I did this research as my PhD thesis. So after I completed my PhD, and then the publishers found my work interesting, and they invited me to expand on the topic and added more data and come up with this book, Alhamdulillah. So also you might wonder why I chose OIC and OECD countries. We know that OIC is an organization of Islamic corporations that consists Muslim countries at around 57 member countries, while OECD is organization of economic and cooperation, you know, economic cooperation and development, you know, that has countries like the Europe, you know. So because although each country have their unique characteristics, so I tried to see how similar or how are the effects on different countries. This is why I selected this country. So I employed or I used 44 countries from OIC 22 and OECD countries 20. So let's go into the real gist. So this is my presentation outline. I'll talk about talk about the book chapters, why income inequality, why financialization, and then the Q&A session. So the book has 6 chapters in total, and the chapter 1 talks about the introduction. I introduce what financialization is all about and link it with income inequality. The second one is I talk about financialization, and I highlighted the key insights. Then the second chapter, it all deals with the theoretical framework. And the fourth one is the methodology, all the statistical methods I use. And then the fifth one is financialization and in-depth analysis. The sixth chapter talks about financialization and income inequality, and I discuss about the key findings, then conclusion. So, what income inequality? You know, throughout the world, income inequality is just a serious problem because the gap between the rich and the poor continues to widen. So it has been a serious problem that is affecting almost every country in the world, you know. So, and I define income inequality, as a situation where the income of the country is unevenly distributed, meaning that not all members of the country get a fair share of the national income, you know. And this has been a serious case, you know. You see in every conferences, in every economic discuss, you see the issue inequality, you know, like the development, Millennium Development Goals, you know. Every country wants to narrow this gap, wants to reduce this extreme inequality. And it is also known that the global wealth, you know, like imagine 1% of the global population holds 50% of the global wealth, which means the remaining 99% of the population only get to share the remaining 50%. You know, this is a really serious problem in the world. And because I chose OIC country, which has Muslim countries, you know, so Middle Eastern countries that forms like the largest share in OIC countries, and Africa are among the most unequal region in the world. Like poverty in Africa is just too much. Middle Eastern countries also are battling with the poor condition, inequality problems. And also there is a research conducted by, I think it's a research done in the Middle East. It reported that 64% of total regional income went to top 10% of the income. So it's like everywhere is the same problem, you know, as against 37% that is obtained in the Europe and 47% in the United States. So, and we know that in Islam encourages wealth distribution, right? And Islam abhors, or I would say Islam condemns hoarding of wealth. It wants the wealth to circulate to everybody in the society. That is why money is seen as a medium of exchange and not a commodity to be stored. You know, like in Islamic social finance also, where we have the redistributive mechanisms like Waqf, which is an Islamic endowment, Zakat, which is Sadaqah, and Sadaqah, sorry. So all these things are measures that, when followed properly, will help lessen the inequality. For example, let's take Waqf for example. Waqf is an Islamic endowment, which reduces the structural inequality that is among the population, because it allows access to essential services, you know, because essential services, or I would say core services such as healthcare or education, you know, that people could not have afforded, you know, it would maybe give it, like, it will provide it at a lesser cost or at even free of charge to the less privileged members of the society. So also Zakat, you know, Zakat is like a compulsory tax on wealth, on income, which is paid after every end of the year. So I know of countries like Malaysia, Zakat is made compulsory. And while I know of our situation here in Nigeria, not many people paid Zakat. Yes, I know that. The wealthy, because there are a lot of extreme wealthy people in the country, so they are not so keen in paying Zakat, you know, so that's why maybe the poverty level here is quite high. Also Sadaqah, which is a voluntary giving, you know, to the miskin, also is not so like, it's supposed to alleviate the immediate suffering of the masses, but sadly, the Muslim world is really struggling with all this problem. And we know that extreme inequality leads to a lot of social problems. The consequence of inequality is a lot because it leads to social problems, you know, like, all again, I will always be making reference to my country because extreme inequality has led to a lot of insurgencies, you know, kidnappings in Nigeria, because the lower part of the society felt they have been marginalized, you know, they felt the income is being shared by only few people in the country, you know, the class, the elite class, you know. So also looking at like Arab countries, you know, we have seen the wars that have been going on in the Arab countries, the Arab Spring, also like the Occupy Wall Street in America. You know, all these are the consequence of income inequality. And this is a serious problem that each economy or each country has to take care of. So in finance or economics, we use Gini coefficient to represent how a society, to know the extent of inequality. For example, it is a standard measure of income, which ranges from 0 to 1 or 0 to 100. For example, if the Gini coefficient is 0, it means everybody receives equal income in the country, which is very unlikely, impossible. And when it is 100, it means the entire income of the nation gets taken by one person. So this curve we see here is the graphical representation of the Gini coefficient. For example, it's called the Lorentz curve. You could see this is the perfect equality line, meaning that anybody that falls on this line is earning the same income. But this curve, you see the A region shows that the income inequality is like is increasing. You know, the A region is an equal line. It means that not many people are earning the same. Maybe like Fatima is earning, maybe Aisha is earning here, or Professor A is earning here, you know, so it's like people earn different income. And the farther away this curve is to the origin, the more unequal the society is. Whereas the closer the curve is to the equality line, it means the less income inequality in the country. So this is, I just want you to have an image or the picture of how we know a society is has income inequality or not. So now I downloaded data of income inequality and plotted it. I just wanted to have enough reason for me to carry out this research, okay? So I downloaded data on both OIC country and OECD countries. On the left corner, you see the average Gini coefficient for OIC countries from 2000 to 2012, because, from 2004, because my research was from 2004 to 2012. So you could see the average coefficient from 2004 to 2007 as represented by the blue bars, you see? For like example, countries, Bahrain, Indonesia, Jordan, Kazakhstan, you could see the red and blue bars. From the red and bars, you could see the difference. From 2009 to 2012, the income inequality was increasing significantly in OIC countries, as against the blue bars, which is much lower than the red bar. Also coming here on the right side, maybe on your side will be on the left side, right? So OECD countries, like the average coefficient, you see the blue bars against the red bars. And also looking at the y-axis, you could see that the average Gini coefficient in OECD countries is around 0.8, you know, as against that of OIC countries, sorry, which is around 60%. So this goes to show you that Muslim countries has more unequal distribution of income as against the OECD countries, because you remember 0 means there is equal distribution. So the lesser the closer you are to 0, the more equal the distribution, just like as in this case, you know, the closer OECD countries are to 0, the lesser the income inequality. So also on the world map, I wanted you to have a picture of where OIC countries are. You could see that this is the Southeast Asian countries, this is somewhere Africa, this is Middle Eastern countries. And OECD countries, this is around North America. This is the European countries, and somewhere here is the Australian countries. So this is just to have a picture of how OIC and OECD countries are represented on the world map. So why is income inequality rising? You know, although there are many causes of inequality, like for example, the higher the education level, the higher the income she or he will get. Like the more access to technology a country is, the more access to skills, expertise, the lesser the income inequality. There are so many causes, but one of the main causes that is gaining attention recently is the financialization of income. So, but before I define financialization, let me first talk about finance a little bit, you know, because financialization, the key factor of financialization is increasing role of finance in our daily life. We are so accustomed to using finances. We are so accustomed to taking debt. We are so accustomed to taking loan. We are so comfortable with taking interest-based loan, you know. So finance is a science that relates to money and market. For example, it's an intertemporal exchanges that takes place, meaning that you take debt or credit, and this is like given to a person in terms of credit, loan or borrowing. You know, it's like you grant a credit or debt to someone, you know, and in return, that person pays you a fixed return that is interest, you know. So we know that, of course, we wouldn't say finance is not good, because finance made resources available to like people who are in need of money, that is the deficit unit, will go to the surplus unit that has money and borrow money. But remember that all this is done at a cost, because there is no way someone will borrow you money without charging you interest. And this interest will have to be paid regardless of the outcome of the venture. For example, take Nigeria, for example. Interest rate in Nigeria is around 27%, you know. If like you imagine you're borrowing 100,000 naira for a year, you have to pay 27,000 naira, irrespective of the outcome of the venture. And we all know that business doesn't get to break even in the first or second year. So where is that money going to come from? And in a case of default, whereby I borrow that money and I'm not able to pay, I have to like, you know, there's this term, like, I don't know if I should, like, the interest is compounding. You don't pay it now, it gets compounding, charging interest on interest. That will make the situation of any entrepreneur worse, you know. But then, of course, we have to get finances to do our business, and at the same time, we have to pay interest. So this is really a dilemma that is, you know, we face every day. So now, this led me to defining what financialization is all about. You know, financialization is all, just imagine it as increase or making more money in the financial sector rather than the real sector of the economy. Or I would say like a disproportionate growth of the financial sector compared to the real sector of the economy, that's the GDP, through rapid growth of debt and increase in financial sector profits. Because remember, I told you that you get money, you borrow money, but not without a string attached to it, meaning that you have to pay interest. So by paying interest, is like we are creating a society of high indebted society. So just understand this concept first. Is like financialization is all about making money from like the financial sector as against the real sector of the economy. I'll come back to that again. So now you can look at financialization at two different levels. That is at the macroeconomic level or microeconomic level. You know, at the macroeconomic level, just think of it as a country that gets benefit from financial services, you know, and this financial services gets to contribute to the national income, you know. This national income also leads to financial capital growth. Remember, financial capital here, we are talking about bonds, stocks, sukuk, Islamic stocks. And you remember that this kind of investments are only under taken by the high net worth individuals of the country. Ordinary people are struggling on how to make ends meet, so they don't even have enough disposable income to save, that even go and make any investment, because most investment, like I know of in Nigeria, like let's say the recent sukuk, the sukuk investment, the bond investment, are all bought by the high net worth individuals, you know. Because the denomination is quite high, maybe you see 10 million, 20 million, where do ordinary people see that money to invest in, you know? So these people, because they have the resources, it's like they are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And because these people, the financial, the elite class, they have advantage over the ordinary people. They can have access to the capital market. The corporations, the big companies can raise money at a way cheaper cost than the banking system, because you know that raising capital raising funds in the capital market, it's much cheaper than when you were to go to bank, because they will charge you like a high percentage of interest. Like I told you, in Nigeria, it's like 27%. So you see, at the end of the day, those who have money will keep getting money, and those who doesn't have will keep getting indebted to these rich people. This is at the macro and also micro level. And also at the micro level here, I am talking about corporations, you know. Corporations have changed their corporate governance in the sense that they are more interested on pleasing their shareholders. So they are more interested on looking at the short benefit, like the short-term growth of like the short-term financial performance of the company. That is, if investors are not happy, they will withdraw their funds and go and invest in another company. So they pay attention more to the shareholders rather than the stakeholders, like the overall economic growth of the country. So this is also another problem that is really affecting the entire economic system. So how financialization started in OIC country. But before I talk about financialization in OIC country, I want to tell you a little bit about how it even came about. Okay, we know that around 1970s, that was when there was high inflation in the US. And then there was this incident of Bretton Woods system was abandoned, you know. There was this high inflationary pressure at the time. So OPEC, that's Organization of Petroleum Corporations, they retaliated by hiking the price of oil. So oil price became very expensive, very high. And as a response policy by the US government, they hiked interest rate. So which is known as the Volcker shock, you know, for those economists in the house. Yeah, so this was in 1970s. But financialization, how it started in Muslim world is like, I would say in the last few decades, let's say 2 decades, is as a result of government efforts to increase the domestic liquidity, because the government felt by inviting foreign companies or foreign banks to come and invest in the domestic market, there will be more liquidity in the country, right? Because these people will come with their resources will come with their technology, will come with their expertise. But then at the same time, the government has to make some compromises in the sense that maybe providing tax grants for them, about reducing interest rates so that they would feel comfortable to invest in these countries. But you have to remember, the indigenous banks also are facing heavy stiff competition from these foreign banks. Also, there is a change. This introduction of these foreign companies changed the corporate and individual culture from bank-based to market-based. Just like what I said before, if you have to if you have to raise 1 million at, let's say, a cheaper cost, why would you go to the bank and get charged interest, you know? So because of this development, banks also now felt, okay, since companies are gaining more money, why don't you also devise more means of getting money? So banks also became actively involved in the parties. They became active members in the financial market through providing services like securitization, underwriting services. So, you know, this is how it all gets like, this is how we all got into the financialization of our daily lives. So also, I want to show you that I was like, how do I convince people that yes, financialization is taking place in the Muslim world or in the OIC countries? So I downloaded data of banks' profit after tax, you know. So I ran the data and this data gave me this result. You could see that in year 2000, banks' profit in OIC country was much, much less compared to 2014. You see, like even during the global financial crisis, banks were still afloat, you know. Banks were still making profit. You see, the profit kept increasing until the end of the year that where my research ends. So this shows that some certain class of people are making more money while other segment of the population are not. And it's obvious, you see, every year banks are declaring billions of naira profit. So sometimes you wonder, where do these people get the money from, you know? Because I know that people's income, or I would say households' income, remain the same. Salary, I mean, the same, wages the same. So why are others making profit and not us, you know? So I now, also in the book, I discussed about some insights about the financialization, is some of the features of financialization. The first one is the rise in rentier income. When I say rentier income here, I meant capital owners, those people who have the capital to lend it to the ordinary people, you know. So they make money through, like, let's say, charging interest. If we are talking of corporations, they make money also through charging interest. So it's just like these people are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. And also corporations that have to pay like dividends to these capital owners, they have to give it in form of dividend, you know. They have to make it in terms of interest payment. That is for those who are taking like loan, loan and bonds, you know, because it's a fixed contract that you have to pay it like periodically, maybe semi-annually or annually, depending on the terms of the contracts, you know. So it means that this more money is being given to people without without paying attention to how this money is being reinvested. Okay, look at the second point I wrote here, is decline in physical capital accumulation and production. Because more money has to be given to capital owners, so there is less available money to be invested in the production activities of the country, you know. This is also the case like in Nigeria, because in early 1960s, we know that Nigeria is an agrarian economy and also at the same time a manufacturing economy. But then sadly, for some reasons, those things are not in existence. They have been abandoned. And then there is less investment in manufacturing, you know, more attention is paid to the financial sector, you know. So this will have drastic effect on the economic growth. So also the third one is the regulation of financial sector. We know that most economies have opened their borders to outsiders. What I mean here is that many countries have opened their borders to invite foreign companies to come and invest in the country. Okay, by inviting these companies to the country, of course, it will make liquidity available in the country. More money will be available to circulate. But you have to remember that as more money are into the economy, it will make the market large in size. And anything that is large in size will be hard to manage, will be hard to control. So this can lead to instability of that market. And many researchers have associated the regulation of financial, or they have associated the recent, or I would say the financial crisis that happened in the world, the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the 2008 financial crisis, they associated it to the regulation of financial market. And you have to also understand that these companies that come to invest in the country, in any event of crisis, if in the event of any crisis, these people, because they are already very big, you know, they already have huge capital, both in the country they are operating and in their original country. So this country have the upper hand to buy the existing company, meaning that these international companies will go into, maybe, let's say, mergers and acquisition. They will try to acquire the failing companies or the failing banks in the country. And also, you have to understand, if they acquire this bank, already they have their money. And in a situation where they feel that country is no longer habitable for them to continue living in, they will exit the country. The country will experience massive flight to quality, meaning that capital flight, there will be capital flight, capital will be withdrawn out of the country, will be taken to a safer investment. So you see, at the end of the day, the country will be left to deal with its problem. Also, there is financialization of everyday life. And this one is like, we are so accustomed to borrowing money. It has gotten to a stage, or I would say it's already even in existence in developed countries, where even to go to the university, you have to take loan, you know. Some countries, to even get married, you have to get loan, you know. So it's like too much, finance has been too much it has taken a center stage in our lives, you know. It's like, without finance, we cannot do anything. Without finance, we cannot own a car, you know. So it's all about, and these things are all done at a cost, you know. Imagine you are, let's say, buying a house of 10 million naira, you will end up paying the interest of another maybe 10 million, or let's say 5 million naira. That 5 million naira would have been used elsewhere. Maybe you would have been used in a productive activity, you know. And also, you know, there is this how would I say, let me take, for example, pension funds. We all know that every employer, or I would say employee, have to pay a certain percentage of his income, contribute to the pension fund, so that at the end of the at the end of your retirement, you get to be paid that money. But these pension funds, you know, they have also found a way of reinvesting these funds in the financial market. So it's like they have dragged households into also financialization. So without you knowing, you are at home, you don't even know that your money is being invested somewhere, you know. And this is a serious risk they are taking, because they engage in a very risky investment. Like, they invest in a structured products, they invest in commodities, you know, they invest in private equities. So, you know, all these things are all how financialization comes to take center stage of our life. The increase in household debt also. You see, I am sure all of us knows that our income has not kept pace with the rising cost of living. Prices are increasing by the day, and at the same time, our income is stagnant. Our income is not rising, prices of goods and services are rising. So for us to maintain our consumption, that is, in order for us to continue living as we are used to, some of us have to resort to, like some working class, of course, have to resort to borrowing money from the financial sector. And this money is, of course, not without a cost. You have to pay interest charges, you have to, so it's like we are creating a society of indebtedness. People are getting indebted by the day, and it's a cycle which is very difficult to break. It's a cycle which is very hard to come out of. So, and then also in part of my thesis, I use institutional quality. I relate it with income inequality, because you know a country that has good institutions, you see, will have lower inequality. For example, let's take rule of law. How abiding are the citizens of the country? Democratic accountability, like how are businesses abiding by the law? Is it like, are there a lot of red tapes, bureaucracy? And then corruption, how corrupt is the country? And we all know that corruption is so endemic in the, I would say, Africa or Muslim world. You know, it's really hard to kill this. How will I name it? So quality of bureaucracy also affects the income inequality. That is, how is the government responding to the needs of its citizen, and government stability? How stable is the government? You know, as we know that a stable government will encourage more business, more economic activity, more productions, more businesses will open. More investors will want to come to invest in a country that they know the government is stable, rather than if the government is unstable. You fear that your investment will be wiped out in a day. So no investor would want to come and invest in such country. So yeah, in my book, I made extensive analysis and linkage between these institutions and income inequality. So I also use these two theories, theory of the nexus of finance and growth, and then finance and inequality. Okay, when I talk about the nexus of finance and growth here, we know that finance is a vital ingredient to economic growth, in the sense that sectors that had no money would have funds available for it to run their business activities. But then there are some critics of finance. They said that too much finance is not good. Just like I talked the previous slides, that we are so accustomed to taking loan and stuff like that. So some researchers or some scholars opine that finance is only important up to a certain stage or up to a certain threshold, meaning that any growth, any expansion beyond that threshold becomes a drag on economic growth. And others also say that no, finance, it depends on the economic development of the country. Some developed countries are okay when they take finance, or some developing countries. So it's like a huge debate that is still ongoing in the sphere of finance. And also I use the finance and inequality theory because you see, in a perfect condition, let's say in a perfect market, both large corporations and small corporations should have equal access to resources. I mean, equal access to funds. Like each company, regardless of their size or credit history or the collateral they have, should have equal access to funds, you know? Because when funds are available, it will encourage more economic activity. There will be more economic development, more businesses will open up, more employment will be possible. This will directly reduce income inequality, okay? But then we are talking in a perfect condition. But under imperfect market condition, this lesser or smaller companies have less, or I would say have zero collateral to pledge. They have less income. They have zero credit history. So how do we expect them to have equal access to the funds, you know? So these people will have no choice, but rather they have to limit themselves to the available resources they have, you know, and in as much as you have an idea or you want to expand your business, but because you are constrained by finance, you have no choice but to work with the available funds that you have at hand, you know. And also these people that's the less, the lower or the smaller corporations, sorry, they have, there's high cost of contract because everything is like not perfect. There is information asymmetry. One person has information over the other. There is transaction costs of contracts, you know. So all these are theories that I use to support my research in the financialization sector. So in the literature so far, because like I told you, the literature is still growing. There is no like one size fits it all variables used. But of course, at the earlier introduction, I told you I used my Gini coefficient, which is the income inequality indicator, as my dependent variable. And also I use bank profit after tax. That is for this 44 countries. I also use stock traded for all the countries. And then I also use market capitalization of the listed firms, all as percentage of GDP. So these variables helped us to explain or to shed more light on how financialization affects income inequality. And because you see, all my talk is all about banks, high net worth individuals, debt, interest rates, loan credits, you know, so, and stocks, bonds, you know, shares. So these are, in literature, we found that this is the best variables that will shed more light on the extent of financialization in the country. So also, because we said financialization is also, debt is also, I would say, is a fuel that keep the financialization wheel running. So I also downloaded another separate data. So I used two different sets of data. Again, the dependent variable remains the Gini coefficient. Then I downloaded data to private credit data to households, because I wanted to see how indebted are households. Like this data will show, for example, from 2005 to 2010, this is how much loan the households have taken. And then I also downloaded data, sorry, on debt, the public debt, you know, like I take the difference of it, the rate of debt, the rate of growth of debt of that country relative to GDP, because we know that most countries are highly indebted now, and we know the consequences of debt to the economy. It's like we have seen the Greece crisis, we have seen the recently the Sri Lankan debt crisis, and even us here in Nigeria, we are in a serious problem because the government kept on borrowing money, because this money, just the servicing of this debt is really a problem. You know, we are talking of trillions, 1 trillion naira going into servicing of debt, you know. And without this 1 trillion naira, if the government hadn't taken on this loan, or I would say this debt, it would have used these resources for other social programs. Because, you know, as it stands here, there is basically no safety nets in this country, or I would say in the Muslim world. You know, everyone is just left to fend for himself, you know. And also the inherent nature, I would say the poor nature of the, I would say some of the Muslim countries, there is this lack of social mobility. Like there is no intergenerational movement. That's if you are born poor, you will remain poor. You pass the poverty to the next generation. So it's just like a cycle. It just continues, you know. So I measure this debt growth, and then also I took a data of finance, rate of growth of finance relative to GDP, because if you remember in the earlier introduction, I said financialization is all about how the financial sector is the overgrowth of financial sector relative to GDP. So my period of study is from 2002 to 2014, and I used 24 countries, 22 from the Muslim countries, that's OIC countries, and then 22 from the OECD countries. And the analytical method I use is GMM, generalized method of moment, which is using the system GMM. So, so who should like this? Who should buy this book? So this book will appeal to policymakers, especially economists, if they want to study the dynamics of, let's say, for example, someone interested in knowing the dynamics of Arab countries or the Muslim countries would interest him to buy this book, because that's where they will see the extent of how finance affects inequality and what are the policies to be adopted so as to solve the economic problems. And then Islamic finance researchers, those who want to like look at different aspects of financialization, you know, can buy this book. From where I stopped, they can continue from where I stopped. Also lecturers who wants to equip themselves with the knowledge of how financialization affects inequality in these countries can also be interested to buy this book. So also students, you know, maybe those who are currently pursuing their master's or PhD will have an idea on how to like what approach. If maybe I took from 2004 to 2014, they can change the data set or the period of the study to extend it to maybe to date to present to 2023 or before. Yeah. So as a conclusion, I would say that this book explains explicitly about financialization and how it causes income inequality, you know, and then Gini coefficient, which is the most reliable measure of income inequality, was employed. And then it really shows you, I won't tell you what happened, but you have to buy the book, then only you will know what happens, you know. So, and also, of course, from the first graph, it shows that inequality is more pronounced in OIC countries as against OECD countries. And then some of the solutions I propose or I proffered in the book is that for economists to adopt risk sharing system. What I mean by risk sharing system is that, okay, in a financial contract, everybody should be allowed to enjoy like the returns. Let's not make it a fixed contract. Like we know all debts attracts fixed payment, okay? Like I made the reference of when I borrow 100,000 naira, I'll pay 27,000 naira at the end of the payment period. So why not we make it as a risk sharing thing, meaning that whatever happens in the venture, if I make more profit, everybody gets to share the benefit. Whereas also when I make losses, then everybody, it's like equity, there's equitable distribution of resources against only the elite class, those capital owners, the rentier class, you know, owning certain significant portion of the resources and indirectly making the poor people highly indebted. So also I suggested about having sound institutional environment, because we know that in most part of the countries, for example, I will always keep making reference to country like Nigeria, because that's where I'm more conversant with. Corruption is endemic in the system, you know. Okay, like when we talk about the rentiers having more access to to the finances, having in all situations, you will see them. Like, let's say in any, like in economic recession, those people are those who have connections with the government. In fact, most of the corporations are owned by the government. So any palliatives, any economic relief, any help that the economy, the government wants to give to the people will get usurped, will get taken by these people, because they are those that have direct access to the government. They are those who have the huge capital. They are those who control the policy makers. In fact, they are even the policy makers in some instances. So I propose that there should be sound institutional environment where there will be check and balances, trying to minimize red tapes, bureaucracies, lessening corruption, and this will significantly go a long way to reduce income inequality. Because imagine if there are money meant to be distributed among the citizens and it gets usurped by one person, how is that going to change the economic condition of those people? Because only one person gets to enjoy all the resources. So yeah, that's some of the suggestion I made. So this is where you would get the book. It's published by De Gruyter in Germany in 2020. And these are the links where you will get the copy. If you want the ebook, this is the ISBN, the hardcover is this. And this is my email address if you need any further clarification or information. And this is my WhatsApp line. So I thank you all for listening, and I will stop the sharing of the slide and open the floor for question and answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima, for this
You're welcome.
presentation.
You're welcome, brother.
It was detailed. It was detailed explanation by you.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Let's move for the questions. Yeah, now the floor is open for questions. Maybe if you want to ask a question directly, you can unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and start to ask the question directly. Otherwise, I will be reading the questions from the chat box. So I think we have a question here from Brother Abubakar Abdulkarim. Thank you, Dr. Fatima, for this interesting topic on income inequality. Based on your knowledge and opinion, what can government do to reduce economic inequality? And is there any successful country that has implemented this that we can make an example of?
So you said, what's the name of the person? Muhammad, is it?
Abubakar Abdulkarim.
Abubakar. Okay, we know that income inequality varies according to where you come from. For example, like the Scandinavian countries, like Sweden, we know that income inequality is much less, is lesser compared to countries like when you compare it with Africa. And this is so because these countries have ample, or I would say they have enough social safety nets, meaning that they have a lot of programs for their people, which help lessen the effect of inequality. There is more equitable distribution of income. So in countries where, like in Africa or the Muslim world, where inequality is very serious, so these countries have to learn from, like I would say, these countries, like I'm giving the Scandinavian countries, they have to copy the policies they use to like for their own people through giving, let's say, palliatives. Maybe let's say if like your income, certain income from this level to that level, you are like not supposed to pay tax. All these measures will make more capital, will make more resources, more capital more disposable income. The households will have more disposable income. As you have more money at hand, you can use it to buy goods and services you want. Yeah, so it's that the adoption or the introduction of social safety nets to the country so that will lessen the income inequality. I hope I have answered your question.
Good, good, thank you. Any other question? If none, in meantime, I can, okay, can minimum wage reduce income inequality? Minimum wage, I guess, yeah.
Minimum wage. You see?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, go ahead. That's all I see. That's all I see in the question. So we can go.
That's all about the question.
Yeah.
So it's just like a minimum wage. I would say no, because you have to understand. Let's say minimum wage. Minimum wage in certain part. Let's assume minimum wage is $2,000, and goods and services kept rising. Cost of living is just very high now. So the government have to attack or have to arrest those things that are causing the income inequality. Minimum wage is not going to change anything, because, and you see, like in most cases, the more the salary is increased, the more prices of goods and services will rise in tandem with the increase in prices. So all that I am still saying is that the government has to have policies, measures that will lessen the income inequality, especially like in finance, where there is a huge discrimination between large corporations and small corporations. You know, larger corporations are not, you know, because we know interest is tax deductible, meaning that you have to deduct interest before you pay tax, like before you declare your profit. So we know companies that have large funds, you know, they have large money. I mean, they will keep getting rich. So it doesn't matter if you have minimum wage, let's say of $2,000, it just remains $2,000. So it just has to be from the top by making more friendly policies that will take care of the less privileged member of the society. Yes.
Good, good. So I have another question here from Dr. Aminu Maruf Nas. Thank you, Dr. Fatima, for the wonderful presentation. Do you think reducing interest rate will improve financial inequality? Nigerian government is proposing to reduce interest rate in the country.
Okay, yes, it will, but in my opinion, let there be abolition, let the interest rate be abolished completely, you know, because still, even if interest rate is 1%, 2%, 3%, okay, like it stands now in Nigeria is 20, I think it's almost 27%. I'm sure they will not, interest rate will not be reduced below 20%. So you can imagine 20% of 100,000 is still 20,000 naira. So it's still the rentier class, you know, the capital owners that would keep getting the would still getting the benefit of the whatever investment that is. So as against, if the interest rate is completely abolished, we adopt the risk sharing principles, where whatever you get, like you borrow 100,000, you do your business, whatever you get to share it, you know. So in my opinion, it's not going to make a significant reduction in income equality, because like I always say, the rentier class in Nigeria, they always kept getting rich, while the poorer gets to remain in their condition, or even worse than they were. Yes, so that's my suggestion, or that's my opinion.
So another question from Brother Muhammad Buba. Given the importance of finance to support entrepreneurs and support growth, can we adopt Islamic financialization through waqf, zakat, Islamic products like risk sharing to minimize this inequality? Are there countries who have adopted this concept, and how successful is that?
Okay, you see, I have to say that, you know, because finance, or I would say, I'm sorry to say, because most of those practitioners most of those from the conventional banks are still the ones mostly transferred to Islamic banks, you know. So it's like adopting this kind of risk sharing mechanism is really, really something that they are not interested to do, you know. So it have to take, at the moment, there are many countries, it's still at the proposal stage, like Malaysia is really trying their best. Like the Wakaf system of Sudan is also really good because many underprivileged people get to be educated, get to get free healthcare. In Malaysia also, I know of so many Wakaf programs. In Indonesia also, some Muslim countries, yes, they are really trying, and really is slowly and gradually reducing the gap between the rich and the poor. But like, again, I told you, it's still something that is still at the development stage. People are really working hard to see how they could work to bring the best model in the Islamic finance. So at the moment, seriously, I think there is no concrete one, but countries like Malaysia, Sudan, or you know, Indonesia are trying their best to have these measures in place. Yep.
Thank you. So we have also brother Dr. Ahmed Ibrahim Muhammad, and so they say, my name is Dr. Muhammad of Banking and Finance Department, Federal University, Jigawa State, Nigeria. Currently, yeah, which is the best. So yeah, then we have a question from brother Muhammad Zulkifli.
Thank you.
I would like to ask regarding her definition of financialization. I argue that our definition of financialization should be beyond the heavy explained financial sector. We should focus on the fetishization of the financial devices and lead to commodification of everything.
Yeah, you know, they are all like intertwined, because financialization, securitization, you know, it's all like it's just how you define it, you know. Like we know securitization is an evil thing that that is compounding problem in I would say in the financial sector. This just imagine, banks want to get rid of their indebtedness, their liability, so they package it up and resell it, you know, to households, to investors. So you know, it's like, it's just a cycle, you know. You are packaging that and selling it to people, people are buying it, you know. So it's like, it's just like what happened during this crisis of the US, you know, the mortgage crisis, you know, because the bubble kept forming until it busted, and then it affected the overall nation, you know. So it's just how you word it. It can mean everything that you mentioned, brother. Yes. It's not only limited to financialization. It comprises all the things you mentioned. It's just how you define it, how you see it. Yes.
Okay, good. Do we have another question? I don't see. Maybe I will add a question before closing the question sessions, or waiting for another question. So I think you're familiar with the Gini index, or the called Gini ratio, which is about well, the most famous measure about income distribution, right? And
Exactly.
if we look at the statistic from the World Bank, there is an interesting phenomena. So you have three types of countries who are the best in terms of income distribution. You have some Scandinavian countries, and they are not in the top. Yeah, and you have also let's say ex-Soviet Union countries, or socially oriented countries. You even have, I think there is even one African country who's doing quite well in income distribution. Algeria is in the top 10. You have Azerbaijan, those Muslim countries also. So those countries are not fully into financialization, I guess. They are very socially oriented. So is that a solution? Instead of opening the market, we should have more government interventions and more socially oriented structures?
But I think if you dig deeper, you will see that those countries, they are into financialization, because I am sure those countries, they use credit cards, right? They use, I would say, like they buy houses on mortgages, right? That's financialization.
Actually, they have social programs where the government build houses and give them at preferential rates without interest.
But it's still not. Yeah, I know, but it's still not without a cost, right?
No, it's the government build the houses. It is like the quarterly programs they used to have in Soviet Union. So they build the houses, and they sell them at the almost at the building at the cost price. So that's
but
cheap.
You know, that's just the minority, and maybe I should say that I did not use all the OIC countries. There are some criteria that I use. You know, I normally took. You see, I plotted at the earlier presentation. You saw that I plotted the Gini coefficient, right, of certain countries. So it's based on how high it is, you know, how extreme that how would I say the index is. That was one of the criteria I used in the sample selection. Yes.
Got it. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Sure, no problem. Do we have another question? So, Salam Doctor, it's great on it today. What's the question here? How Nigerians can survive with this economic crisis based on Islamic theories, and what are the best ways forward for the country? I think it's a general question, but
yeah. You see, one of the main problems with Nigeria is Nigeria was doing quite, I mean, I would say okay prior to the country taking on this huge debt. And we know that debt is abhorred in Islam, you know. Nigeria was doing wonders, you know, was doing good. But as soon as it started taking on debt, everything went haywire, you know. Now, income has not kept pace with the rising cost of living. Cost of goods are just increasing by the day. People are barely eating 3 square meals in a day. People are like have resorted to eating maybe twice or even once in a day, you know. So the first culprit here is the debt. If the country can do away with this debt, our problem will be, if not say more than 50% of our problem will be solved, because now the government is really scrambling on how it can source resources to finance this debt. And you know all how much strings are attached to all these debts. You a lot of social programs that has to be downsized in order for the government to have enough resources to pay these multilateral corporations. So yeah, one of the only answer I would say is debt. Debt is always the culprit. Yes.
So countries should avoid debt, right?
Yes, exactly. See Sri Lanka, what is happening to Sri Lanka, or what has happened to Sri Lanka. You know, Sri Lanka was a beautiful country, amazing country, but see how the whole thing get messed up. And the same thing here also in Nigeria, subsidy cuts, you know, people now are paying. Imagine Malaysia fuel. I just asked a friend, Dr. Siti, just now before we started the conversation, the presentation, how much is fuel price in Malaysia? She said 2-point-something in ringgit. In Nigeria, it's around 6 ringgit, I guess. And you have to understand the average income in Nigeria is not up to 400 ringgit. The average income, average salary. So tell me, with 300 ringgit, what could a person buy from 300 ringgit? So many people have resorted to using bicycles now because it's just no way. You cannot imagine filling your car with, you're earning, let's say, 100,000 naira, and those having big cars, you are fueling it with 50,000 naira. What is left for you? How do you feed your family? How do you school? And there is no any social safety net whatsoever. The schools are not in good shape. Healthcare is not in good shape. Everything has to come out from your pocket. Where do we get all this money? You know, so at least if the debt, if they could do away with the debt, try to settle it, you know, those resources that they use to service the debt would be used in the social programs, maybe by creating more schools, establishing more good hospitals, providing security. So that will go a long way in reducing the inequality in the country. Yes.
Great. So I will take the last question because I don't want us to run out of time.
Okay.
This is question from Ramzan Yildirim. Dear sister,
Dr. Ramzan.
Dear Dr. Ramzan, dear sister Fatima, as usual, great presentation. Thank you. Question is, how can inequality truly be addressed and by whom? One country or entire OIC level? Can the proposed risk-sharing principle truly mitigate inequality? Islamic finance always recommends the implementation of the risk-sharing principle. Theoretically, it sounds awesome. However, do we have real cases where risk-sharing principles have been implemented, leading to success as emphasized by Islamic finance?
So, thank you, Dr. Ramadan. It's good to hear from you after so long. Dr. Ramadan was my course mate, so we graduated together.
Nice.
So, Dr. Ramadan, like I will always say, inequality, yes, can be addressed by Muslim countries. You see, I am sorry to say that, and it is a known fact that, I'm not saying it in a derogatory term, but Muslim countries, we have problems, seriously. You know, like corruption is endemic. Again, like I said, something meant for the ordinary people will be usurped by one single person, you know. So we have to change our hearts, we have to change ourselves. We have to imbibe the spirit of sharing, like we have to love what we love. We have to love for people what we love for ourselves, you know. So if we have this principle, if we adopt these principles, I am sure like the Muslim world will have the inequality that exists in the Muslim world will be less, yeah, because everyone's mentality would be more of how he helps his brother, not how he sees his brother in a difficult situation. Yes. So inshallah, if we have this kind of hearts, then it will go a long way in solving the economic problems that we have. Yeah.
Inshallah. Okay, thank you for the questions. Let me, okay, so before we end our session, I would like to request all participants to switch on their cameras so we can take a photo session. Brother Hanif, maybe take in charge of the picture.
Okay, everyone, if you can turn on your camera for a while for our photo sessions. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Fatima.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hi, Sister Fatia.